last week. Yo, we're gonna review what we learned last week real quick. So, what week was it last week?
4.
Week 4. And what number of commandments was last week?
3.
Which was?
Honor the Sabbath day.
Huh?
Honor the Sabbath. Honor the Sabbath.
Honor the Sabbath, or remember, or technical term, remember to observe the Sabbath day by keeping it holy, right? So, one of the main things we talked about is, what was the first thing we talked about? We read the verse, Exodus chapter 28 through 12, but then right after, there's always 2 parts to resting, right? Like, one of the first things we talked about is, yes, the Sabbath is there for us to rest, but it comes with a preconceived notion that you have to have worked to be able to rest, right? You can't rest if you're resting the whole time, right? So the number one thing we emphasized or learned about last week is that leading up to the Sabbath, you had to have given your best and worked hard for the previous 6 days, and then the Sabbath comes, and then that's when you can rest, right? So the first part is to work, and the second part is to rest. So, and we saw how God gave us an example of both, of how to work and then afterwards how to rest, by Him working the first 6 days to create the universe and every step of the way in Genesis that we've learned of Him creating, and then when it's the Sabbath in the Old Testament being Saturday, He rested, right? And then so the main thing is to have worked throughout the week. So that was the main thing we focused on to start off. And He gave us a model to kind of follow, which makes things a bit easier. But moving forward, we talked about how why we need to work. It's not just you have to work just to be able to rest. As Christians, we have to work because what are we supposed to do as Christians? One of the things we're supposed to do. Be charitable, to give, right? And to be able to give, what do you have to do? You gotta have things. You can't give stuff if you don't have it, right? Yeah. That just hit you. So you gotta have things to be able to give, right? Whether it's time, whether it's money, just to be able to help somebody, you have to have something, right? You can't just, like, you thinking great things for other people is not gonna do any good. So whatever your profession is, so that's one of the things we emphasized. It's not like work within the church for 6 days and then rest. It's whatever you're supposed to be doing. If it's school, if it's work, whatever line of work you're in, you can use that to help people, right? So whatever your job is, there are ways you can help people using that, right? It might not be obvious now, and you might not be able to do it right now, but if you work hard enough, you will be in a position to help others. So that's the main thing. You have to work as hard as you can to be able to help others, and then on the Sabbath will be there for you to kind of rest. Sorry, people keep saying. So moving forward, we talked about how we should not be wasting our time throughout the 6 days, and make sure we're working so that the Sabbath is that much appreciated, right? Sunny days don't feel like sunny days if it's not for rain, right? Like if it's not for the bad things that you have to do, or like you have to go through, or the hard things that you have to go through to get somewhere good, however little that good thing is, you appreciate it a lot more, right? If you're grinding every single day, doesn't matter if it's a little bit of payoff. When you see that payoff, you appreciate that so much more than if it was handed to you, right? So that's the main reason we do that. And so, so it's not about church all the time. It's about church on the Sabbath. So we save the Sabbath for church. I know it seems kind of hard to, the concept that was really hard for me to understand last week was like, rest is like rest. It's not like wake up at 5 a.m. come to Kendase. That's not rest to me. That was the kind of the thing I had really hard time kind of absorbing. But when you are, we learned when you are fully within the church, you get energy that you didn't think you have, right? So when you're within even after working the 6 days, when you're truly praising God, you get the energy you need, and then that's your spiritual rest, and your soul is resting. That's why the Sabbath is so important. And to finish off the main thing, our homework, like what was the homework without looking at anybody? One of the homework was to read two things. One of them was to reread the Matthew chapter 25, verse 41 through 45. I'm not going to read the rest of it, but all of it rather. The ending is, I tell you that the truth. When you refuse to help at least one of my brothers and sisters, you are refusing me to help me. So that's important because it's talking about how every person we help, it's like we're helping God, right? Every day we're trying to help somebody, you're helping God. So if that one person that you hate or that one person that you dislike, that's God's child or God's brother or sister. That was the whole point of the verse. So if we really want the rest that we want, you have to be able to want to help everybody. And if you work hard enough, you will be able to help as many people as you can. That's what I got out of it. You guys should reread it as homework again today. See what you get out of it. All right? First of all, I got it.
Huh? Hi, everybody. Hello. You okay? So let's go ahead and get started. All right. So this week, what are we learning about?
Honor your father and mother.
What are we learning about?
Honor your father and mother.
What commandment is it?
Fourth.
What week is it?
Five.
Some people start with that. Can I get a volunteer? Thank you. Oh, read the verse.
Honor your father and mother. Then you will live a long, full life in the land of your Lord your God is giving you. Exodus 20, verse 12.
Somebody teach the class? What is this verse about?
Honor your father and mother.
So what should we talk about today? You guys seem like you know it. You know what I mean? Honoring. What else?
Like elaborate on.
What is fundamental?
Like really honor them. Like. So what should we talk about? Like you guys know it, right?
The live long
Who's your
aspect.
father?
Live long aspect. Oh, look who's right now. Welcome. Hello, sir. What's your name? Robert.
Yes, sir.
Nice to meet you, sir.
Nice to meet you. Where can I sit down there?
Yeah, just anywhere with an open seat. So can you stand up?
What?
Can you stand up?
There's two seats over there.
And sit back down?
Sit back down.
I was just gonna see if you could take the chair.
I'm kind of upside down.
Please don't get on your phone. That's do it. Do it, please. So what else should we what else should we talk about? Like you guys know it, right? Like honor your father and mother.
You know, say God is the father and the church is mother.
God is the father and the church is the mother. What else? So, I mean, most of it, we already know, right? So that's what I'm trying to get into. So, if you guys remember, I think it was week 1 or something, we started talking about, the commandments are not, a big aha moment, right? It's hopefully, there's no surprise so far. Thou shalt not kill. You know, oh, I gotta stop that, you know? Hopefully, none of this is a surprise, right? When you're 15 or 14 when you're younger, I I can understand why, like, you gotta, especially parents love this. Like, if you go to any parents and you ask them, like, can you, like, say one of the commandments, honor your father and mother, right? Like that's the one that the parents memorize and, like, they teach their kids, they install it. Like, every single thing, like, what's the fifth one? I don't know, but the fourth is honor your father and mother. Why? Because it's like this thing that, like, we grew up with, right? You don't have to go to church, you don't have to do whatever. It's one of those commandments you know. Like, you know it's there, and you know it's the right thing to do. But one of the things that we need to understand is the fact that honor is actually preserved and reserved for God. Right? So the concept of honor is not meant for people, it's given for God. In the book of 1 Samuel chapter 2 verse 30, it says the following. The Lord, the God of Israel, says, I'll honor those who honor me, and I'll despise those who think lightly of me. So the concept of honor, grace, is given for God. Now, if we had to give a definition for honor, it says the following. Respect, fulfill an obligation. So, like, when you think of honor, what do you think of? Like, how do you honor somebody? Partly gave you the answer. But wait, yes?
Like giving a gift?
Okay, but can you be, like, dishonorable while giving a gift?
Yes.
If I gave you, like, a horrible gift? You guys ever seen, what's that show? Jimmy
Kimmel.
huh?
Jimmy Kimmel.
Jimmy Kimmel? And, is it Jimmy? Look what happened. So, Tova just dropped her paper. So, on Jimmy Kimmel, like, there's this, like, YouTube thing that he does where, like, kids, I give my kids a horrible gift or something. You guys ever seen that one?
Halloween candy?
Halloween.
No.
Give
That's
him
the
like
Halloween
they
candy.
give him
That's a
like
different one.
banana.
And like, they give them bad gifts, right? So like, and then the kid's like, Mom, I hate you. So they're still getting a gift, but they feel dishonored, like disrespected, because they're getting a bad gift, right? So it's one of those like things. So you can get a gift, but it can be bad. So that's not exactly honorable. What's another way to honor somebody? Yeah.
Probably obeys. Obey their rules.
Obey is good. I really like obey, right? So the things that I was not looking for are things like respect. Because like if I'm like, what's honor? You say respect. I'm like, what's respect, right? So I'm looking for action items. Obey is very good, and that's kind of where I was headed with this. You really respect and honor somebody when you obey them, right? When you honor their agreements, when you fulfill their obligation to them, whatever it may be, right? I cannot say I'm being honorable to God if I'm not fulfilling His commandments, right? I can't say I respect God and say no to Him at the same time. Like there's no way, right? I can't say I'm respecting you to someone and doing the things that they don't like. It doesn't make sense. Yeah.
So you're saying every time, like you disagree and don't do things.
Disagree is different. Disagree is
That's
different.
what they're saying though.
Disagree is different, and we're gonna get into that. What do you do when it's like the person, like your father, is wrong, right? Like, are you like honor your father or mother, meaning like you have to fulfill what is wrong? No, like we're gonna talk about that. There's a term of honoring. But if your dad says, "Come right here, right now," and you say no, isn't that disrespectful? That's disrespectful. You're completely like disobeying him, huh?
I'm sorry.
You were just thinking out loud. That was kind of random. Can we zoom in on Linda? This is the person that made the comment. So, what was I saying? I was saying something kind of important. Don't dishonor. Like, don't dishonor, right? So, like, in order to honor God, what I have to do is I have to sit down and I have to kind of like obey God. Make sense? Makes sense. The second way that you honor God is by honoring the things that He honors. Makes sense, right? There's no way that I can say I'm honoring somebody and at the same breath dishonor something that He's honoring. I'll give you guys an example of what I'm talking about. For example, Siyum is my student, right? So like Siyum is like supposed to be a teacher or whatever. So like let's say I'm not here for whatever reason. Siyum is the one teaching and like So Siyum is supposed to be teaching. And then like for whatever reason I'm not here, right? So I leave. Now if you guys stop listening to Siyum, who are you disrespecting? Me, right? Because I have entrusted, I've said Siyum is capable of teaching. And then you are nobody wants. So like the main person is, right? If I, as the teacher of this class, say, you know what, from now on, like what we did, like Hal and where is he? I swear he's here. Oh, there he goes. Malaku come in the beginning, and then they give like a 5-minute, whatever they do, right? So like, I said they should do that. As a teacher, you guys are respecting the like decision. Like nobody's saying, Malaku, you suck, even though he does. But, you're right, I'm kidding. Not really. So like, but whenever you listen to him, you're really listening to the decision that was made by the teacher. Whenever you don't listen to him, you're not listening to the teacher. It's the same thing. The same way that God has said, I honor your parents. I honor them. And not only do I honor them, I expect you to honor them as well. Because God is the one who put them in a place of authority. Because God is the one who put them in a place of like parenthood. Because the children are the gift of God, right? Children are the gift of God. So he gave us as gift to them, and then he said, well, like, but they have authority over you, so honor them. So here's the thing that we need to understand. The whole honor your father and mother is not like this like scare tactics that parents are using. It's literally a spiritual act. It's not like a scare tactic or whatever, like, hey, go honor your mother and father. Whenever we're honoring our father and our mothers, we're honoring God himself. We can't separate the two. Like the more respect and the more honor we're giving to our parents, we're actually giving that respect to God. Because what we're claiming at that moment is, my parents are someone that God has given me. He has honored my parents, so I'll honor them. We can't separate the two. Now when you're young, it's hard to see that, right? But not when you're old. Like, you can kind of like understand. Parents need respect. You don't need a commandment to tell you this. You don't need God to tell you, I've honored your parents, therefore you need to honor them. Right? When you're young, 15, you have the fights with your mom and dad. Mom, I hate you. I can't stand you. And you like slam the door and kick your legs around or whatever. I don't like you. You do all that stuff. Why? Because you're young, right? Like it happens. But when you grow up, you start to see the things that your parents do for you. You can't stop but think, man, I love my parents. Right? Who here doesn't want to like respect their parents? Like just think about all the stuff that your parents have done for you. Think about all the things that your parents have done just in the past year. First time I had like an aha moment about parenthood was actually from my brothers. My brother and his wife. Not brothers, but brother. And not with my niece, because she stole my parents away. But my nephew, I love my nephew. My niece, but my nephew I love. I mean, I remember like he's like 5 now, I think, 4 or 5. How old is he?
You don't know.
Don't worry, I love him. Okay, the other one not so much. So I think he was like 2 at the time. I remember we were on the kitchen table, and then my brother's wife, Mimi, because I don't know if she wants to be on the video. She was on like the table, the breakfast table. I don't want to call it dinner table because we were eating breakfast. So the breakfast table, right? You know, so like, and then like she had tea, like she was drinking tea. We were talking, and she had my nephew like on her lap, right? So we're talking, and my nephew, like 2-year-old kid, he grabs the tea and he spills it. Like most of it gets on her, but a little bit gets on him. She picks him up and she takes him over and she's like, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. She starts wiping him down, and I'm looking at this like, it was like he spilled the tea on her. You know, like for me, I was like, that looks like a personal problem. But like for and then like if it was me, I would have been like, hey, you spilled it on me. Like, you know, like what are you doing? Right? I would have been so mad. But she, as a mother, is worried about her child getting mad, and then she's apologizing because she felt like she needed to do a better job protecting him from the hot tea. So for her, as a mother, this is what she's going through. Now, this is one incident that I witnessed. Imagine, like, daily. How many, like, things that, like, babies get themselves into, whatever, right? And then, like, think about how much our parents, like, or parents just in general, have to get involved to make sure that you don't kill yourself. Right? Like, that's the whole thing. It's like, you don't do anything stupid. So, like, they're protecting you, they're running around, whatever, right? Like, Dawit and Gigi. Sorry. So, Dawit and Gigi, they're probably following right now. They have changed after they had a kid. Yes? Dawi's lost weight. Like, it's just like, he can't go to the gym no more, you know, like, because their life literally revolves around it. Like, literally revolves around the baby, right? So, like, everything they're doing, like, they get up, like, I can't talk, I can't do this, whatever. Why? Because of the baby. Like, because of the baby. Because of the baby. It changes, right? So now this baby is going to grow up. And then when she's going to get 15, 16, she's going to go around to Dawit and say, I hate you, Dad, for whatever reason, because he told her not to go somewhere. What do you think Dawit's going to do? What? I'm sorry. I apologize. For those of you guys who don't know, Dawit is very, like, bulky, right? So like for them, for the past 15 years, they literally have stopped their life. They've stopped their life, like everything for this child, right? So imagine like this baby growing up and then like talking back to the parents who've like given up, like we are witnessing it, right? So like, you know, when like your parents, you went around and witnessed it. Now you get to see the amount of sacrifices that's happening because like our friends are, you know, going through it. And you get to see how much they're giving up. And then when you look back at like when you were 15 and like how much of a jerk you were to your parents, that's crazy. That's crazy the way you talk to them. I honor them. You don't need a commandment to tell you that. Like just honor them. Think about like the last time you talked to them. You know, like I get it. Like, you know, mothers, like fathers, whatever, they can be annoying at times. Mom, I told you. But like most of the things that we even argue about, especially now that you're an adult. Think about the last time you had a fight with your mom or your dad. Wasn't it because they cared about you? Like, when we were a kid, it was different, right? It was, like, different arguments, right? Don't do this, don't do that. But now, like, the things that we talk about is, like did you eat? Like, my last conversation with my mom was, like, what are you eating? I have a problem cooking. So, like, she's so worried. She's like, make sure you do this. I'm like, Mom, don't. But she cares. That's all it is. It's out of love, right? And yet, like, we talk to them, like, whatever way we want to. But if you stop and think about all the stuff that your parents do for you, only your parents will do it. Try to talk to somebody like that, like other than your parents, and then see if they still care about you at the end of the day. Like all the things that you've said, all the way that you respond to your dad, your mom, whatever, respond like that to other people and see if they're still willing to be your friend. It won't happen. Nobody would take it. Nobody would take it. Think about all the things that your parents are doing, even now when they don't have to. Like when they're 10, it's like, like, I have a responsibility, I don't know why I did this, right? But like now, they could be like, get out of here. Like, get out of here, right? Like, we don't want anything to do with you. But like, but like now, they're doing it just out of love, regardless of what we're doing. So they deserve the respect. We don't need a commandment to tell us this, right? Like, honor the Sabbath, like we kind of need that reminder, right? So we don't get lazy, so we don't get out of the place, whatever. Honor your father and mother, you don't need a commandment. You know the stuff. You know the stuff. Let's keep going. By the way, you're doing such a great job holding the laptop too.
What was the first blank, by the way?
Please.
Respect and fulfill an obligation.
What is that?
Fulfill an obligation.
Is that what it is?
Huh?
Like,
Yep.
first, second, thing.
Nope.
Please.
Respect and fulfill your obligation.
Yeah.
The other thing that I was saying, oh yeah, the other thing that I kind of touched up on and I want to touch up on again is, are you guys with me? Are you guys with me? Yes?
Yes.
Like, this is not a time, like, it's not time bounded, right? Like, meaning, like, honor your father and mother doesn't mean honor them until you're 18. You know, like, it's funny. I remember, I think, like, when I was, like, at high school, like we probably all done it, right? Like you argue with your parents, like they tell you not to do something. What's the first thing you say? What? Mom, I'm in high school. You can't talk to me like that, right? And then you go to college, and then what do you say? You can't. I'm in college, you know. And then like, what do you say now? Like I'm working. Like literally, like nothing has changed. The way we are responding, we still think today that we're still grown. Even today, you know what I mean? Even today when we talk to. But if you see, let me ask you a question. If you see, like. We all been at Walmart and we've seen little Johnny running around, right? Like, well, you know what I'm trying. I can't say it on camera. I got it. So like, little Johnny running around, right? So and then the mother of Johnny says, Johnny, come here. He's like, no, Mom, I hate you. And then what do you think to yourself? You're like on the line, like this kid needs a beating. right? One of those Habesha beatings, right? Like that's what you think, right? But I'm asking you, literally, what's the difference between Johnny talking to his mother like that and us talking to our parents today the way that we talk to them? What's the difference? We're older? No. Can't possibly be. Sometimes we think just because we're older, we have a job, whatever it is, that it gives us this thing of like talking to our parents any way we want to. If your parents said today, you can't do this, what would be our response? That doesn't work anymore? I'm too grown for this? Like today, if they said that, what's our response? Honor your father or mother. It doesn't mean you can't disagree with them. We're going to get into all that, right? Like disagreement, how to talk to them, all that stuff. But like you've got to give honor. You can't disrespect your parents, even when you disagree with them. Disrespect, disagree, two different things. Right? There's a time where you got to start living your life. Yeah, I agree. There is a time where you got to start doing your own things. Yes, I agree. But you've always got to respect them, even when you disagree with them. Even when you disagree with them. Just be cautious. The way you talk, the way you respond, the way you act, like, you know, especially things like small things, like when they're calling to check up on you and stuff like that, is like it can get annoying, right? Like it gets very annoying sometimes when mother's overly like worrisome, whatever. Like let's be cautious of it, right? We can't just disrespect our parents. Next, who's your father? So, as Hal touched up on, when we mean father, we don't mean just biological father, right? We mean like we have different type of fathers, and the main thing that we're looking for is anybody who is authority over you seen as a father. So this commandment actually is extrapolated to all of the people in your life who are in a place of authority. Now, one thing that I forgot to write down, and hopefully like I'll remember to do it as we go along, is when you're going through this and when you're talking about this, there's two parts to it. Number one, your role to submit to the authority figure. Are you guys with me in the back? Everybody with me in the back? So your role as a person who's supposed to submit to the authority figure, and then your role as the person who might be an authority. I'll give you guys an example, and I didn't put it down here. But if you have like, let's say you're a middle child, right? You have a role to submit to your older brother and to give him honor and respect. And you have responsibility to play the person who's supposed to be honored to your little brother as well. Does that make sense? So a lot of the criteria that are you guys with me? Yeah. Are you guys with me? So you have a responsibility here. Two things that we're going to try to sort through. And I didn't write everything down, but like we're going to talk about it. Number one is if you are in a place of authority, how are you supposed to behave? Are you deserving of that honor? But that's not for you to ask. That's only for you to ask if you're in a place of authority. Does that make sense? I'll give you guys an example. Abba is a priest. Right? He has taken a vow from God that he has to behave a certain way. I, as a deacon, I have to respect him. I can't respect him only when he's behaving the way that he's supposed to behave. That's not how it works. I respect him regardless of if he's a good priest, a bad priest, or whatever. Him as the priest, it's his responsibility to ask himself every day, am I doing the things that I vowed before God to do? Does that make sense? So you, as a person who's like, if you're like a father figure to like your younger siblings, right? Or if you're like in a role model position, like there's some Sunday school teachers here, right? So you're the mother who's supposed to be deserving of honor. So ask yourself, do you deserve that honor? Are you like living the life that is deserving of this honor? Right? These are the things that we have to ask ourselves. Let's go forward. A father is anyone who has authority over you. Giving service at a town. Oh, I know what I'm talking about. Let me give you guys a real life example. Like years ago, before like I started like traveling around, like this was like one of my first out of town service. Like my first out of town service. And I should call out you were there. I don't want to say the place, but you might remember the service. So we go here, and the first night we were like in this like kind of cafeteria, and like, you know, I get up there, I start doing my thing, so the priest don't know me, right? Like, cause I'm not known or whatever. So I go there, right? So I start with the jokes, like knock knock, who's there? Haha, hee hee, right? So we're laughing and like so like the kids we're having a good time, right? Everybody's having a good time. The priests are scared. Some Tahaddiso movement stuff going on in that city. I didn't know this. So they thought maybe I might have been part of like whatever. But like they did not like me. They did not like me. So I'm teaching, I'm in the middle of this, but the kids are loving it, right? Like so we're having a great time. And they're paying attention. And that's the only thing that I'm focused on. They're paying attention. And I get a little note saying, tell them to behave correctly. All we're doing is laugh. They're laughing, they're having a good time and all this stuff. Do you remember what I'm talking about? No? So like, so we're there and like, so I get a note, like tell them to behave correctly. And then I don't want to interrupt the flow, so I just say, and while we're, talking about this stuff, we should remember that we're doing this for the honor of God or something to that effect. So then I keep going with the jokes. Haha, hee hee, we're having a great time. The priest gets up, claps his hand, this other guy gets up, and then he says, I can't believe at how rude everybody's being. And I can't believe your behavior. This is not the way to act in church. This is not the way to learn. And then like, I was shocked. Like, like it's clearly like a bash at me. And I was scared and I said, and then God created the world, and I mean, hallelujah. And then, like, I didn't know what I was shocked. Like, I was shocked. And I remember going and I was like, man, like, this is the first day. I was like, we were supposed to fly out like early Sunday morning or late Saturday or something like that. And I remember thinking, like, just one more day of this. And I don't even know how I'm going to do that. Like, I don't know. So then, I called my main man, my gas. I was like, man. Right, so for those of you guys who don't know, my mentor is that I got a mentor. So I called him and I'm like, I'm at this place. This thing is not going well. I'm telling you, like, I don't know how I'm gonna get through the rest of the weekend. I don't know what to do. He said, tell him gas into. And I was like, can you repeat? Because I don't understand. so he was like, just tell him that Mama's gas sent you. And I was like, I don't get it. I'm telling you, I'm in trouble. He was like, just do it. Saturday morning, I lie to you not. I go and I say, Mama's gas sent me. They got me into the office. They were like, please stay the whole Sunday. Like, let's change our flight. Please teach. He's a great teacher. All this stuff. I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything. I was the same person from the minute I walked in to the point that I left. What changed?
Nothing.
Take notes. A lot of seriously. So, what changes? Mamidas gas came in, right? Now I am suddenly this guy who was set from Mamidas gas. Who's like that respect for? Is it for me? Like no. They don't care about me, right? They don't care who I am. It's for Mamidas gas. They love him. They love him. So from that point on, I got like a lot of respect. This is the same thing. God comes and says, you know what? I sent them. I'm going to measure how much you honor me by how you honor them. So that whenever we disrespect whoever God put in authority, we're directly disrespecting God. The same way that we were talking about earlier. Right? So when we talk about fathers or anybody in authority, we're talking about anything that God has wanted them to be in that place. And the first thing that we're going to talk about, believe it or not, is country leaders. Like leaders. I know it's hard to believe. Hard to believe. But God is the one who put Malas in charge. He is the one who put Ali in charge. He's the one who put Obama in charge. He's the one who put Trump in charge. He puts whoever he wants in charge. I'll say it. I'll say it over and over again. Maybe not over and over again. I said it once, I think that's enough. God puts whoever he wants. Good or bad, it doesn't matter. We're expected to follow whoever is in position. If you don't believe me, read the book of Judges. Book of Judges says the following. It says,
That's a lot.
That's a lot. I'll summarize it. We gotta go. We got things to do. So what happened in the book of Judges is, it's a cycle, right? Like this is a formula for the book of Judges, chapter 2, right? Go and read it on your own. What happens is, like, all right, so Joshua died, right? Joshua is the guy who got him into the promised land. Like Moses, like, didn't do it. Joshua got him in. Joshua died. So after Joshua died, what happened is they transitioned into what they call judges. This is the book of Judges. The rescuer, their savior, who came and like rescued them from evil guys. Right? There were 16 judges in the book of Judges. Some story is very short, like a verse. Some stories are like 2 chapters long. Right? So we have like this like a series of judges. Regardless of what's happening, there's a clear cycle that goes about. Number 1, you have the generation like dishonoring God. When the generation dishonors God, it says He delivered them into the hands of their enemies. Cycle number 1. So like cycle number 1 is the generation is bad. The next step is God delivers them to the hands of the enemies. So then the people, like, so the Israelites are like, oh my goodness, we have a bad like leader, ruler. God, please rescue us. Then they get one of these judges. This is where Samson comes into play. This is where Deborah comes into play. This is where, who am I forgetting? Like big ones. Samuel comes into play, right? So like these are like huge judges that come, like the names that you guys should be familiar with. So they come and they defeat the bad people. They defeat the bad people. Then the generation says, thank God, thank God, thank God. And then like a new generation comes, they forget about God. So God delivers them into their enemies. Then they repent. Then they get a new leader. Then they do bad things. Then it's a cycle. It's a cycle. 16 times they go through it. They break out of the cycle finally when they ask for a king. The point that I'm trying to make, whether it was a good king or a bad king, God is the one who put him in charge. You can disagree with the king, with the leader. You're supposed to, in fact. I don't know if like where I raise it, but notice how the commandment says, honor your father. It doesn't say honor a father. The article is your father. Who's your father? Your father in heaven, or anyone who reflects his ideas. That's your father, right? So if your biological father, to go back into what I was saying before, does not reflect what your father in heaven is reflecting, you can't follow what he says. He's not your father, right? Your father. So whenever like leaders are doing wrong, it doesn't mean just follow them. You have to challenge. You have to tell them what they're doing is wrong. But you have to understand whether bad or good, they were put in place by God himself. What does the word Christ mean?
King.
No.
Messiah.
No.
Ruler of the land.
King is closer.
Ruler of the land.
Savior.
Anointed. Anointed means anointed. You know why it means anointed? You know why it means anointed? It's because like back in the day when the king was became a king, guess what would happen? He was anointed by the holy oil as an affirmation of the fact that God has seen his seat to be like a king. Like as he's being reaffirmed to that position by God. We don't do that anymore. We don't do that anymore. But the name Christ is saying he was like anointed, and like this is like the whole kavat to whatever scenario. But like the name in itself is saying he's the king of above all kings, like Christ, the anointed one, the anointed, not an anointed one. The anointed is he's like a king, right? Because he's like the supreme king. That's what it means. What I'm trying to get at is kings back in history, right? They were anointed because they like seek the approval of God. Whether they're bad, whether they're good, they deserve our respect. Not only do they deserve our respect, they deserve our prayer. Especially if they're doing something wrong, yeah.
What you kind of saying, like, it kind of contradicts in a way.
Okay.
Like, you said that, like, we need to respect them, so, like, it's not our position to tell them, like, the example you used with Kesab, right? Like, we're not in a position to tell them whether they're doing something wrong.
I did not say that.
So what were you saying, how, like, it's not our position to do what? You said we have to respect
Oh,
them.
this is different. Okay, I'm glad you told me that. So like, with the priest example, that's different, and I'll get into that. Right? So the relationship with every like authority figure that you have is going to be different in the way that you handle things, right? So in a government, you're kind of obligated, especially if you're like, even like, I'll buy. If he comes up to me and says, don't go to church, I'll say no.
You want to say why?
Well, okay, you get what I'm saying, right? Like, so I'm just simplifying everything. So like, if he tells me to do something outside of the church, I will say you are wrong for that. I have to challenge him. I have a responsibility to challenge him, right? But if he's doing something else and telling me to do the right thing, I still have to follow it. So in terms of the government, right? So in terms of the government, when they're doing something wrong, it doesn't mean blindly follow them. And I'll give you guys an example. When Peter and them, like in the early parts of the book of Acts, they were going around, they were teaching the word of Christ. What happened to them? They were arrested, right? They honored enough to recognize the seed of the political system, and they obeyed. They went to jail. When they were told, do not preach the word of Christ again, they said, it is better to obey the law of God instead of man. Yeah.
So like, when there's quote unquote bad king, when they get bad kings.
Right.
Let's say what if somebody's not actively trying to take you out of your spiritual life, but it's not somebody that's like actively trying to help you either. So it's like you can't tell like should you obey? Like if they're not actively trying to hurt you.
So this is what I wanted to be clear on. So the main thing, there's a lot of gray areas. I'll give you that. There's not a lot. Like I can't possibly give you like a generic formula for everything that I want to talk about. But what I'm trying to get here in general in this like 1 hour like class that we have is we have a responsibility for our nation, right? For wherever we live in. Things like cheating on your tax sheets, right? That's not okay. Like spiritually, your tax returns and all that stuff, right? Don't do that. Don't do that. Trying to cheat the system in order to get like one thing from the government, you know, like, oh, the white man is trying to break us down. Like that mentality is not spiritual. We have a spiritual obligation to follow the rule. Not just because like we're caught or we're not caught, but we have a responsibility for the nation and the country that we live in order to obey. There's like again, it's politics, so there's political ways to figure it out, and there's other things that we could do. And again, I can't give you all the formulas. The generic things that I'm trying to tell you is things like cheating and lying on like forms when we fill out in order to get like a little bit of money back and stuff like that. That's not okay. Spiritual. Tied with the government is the same things that we try to do at work, right? Especially, for example, like if you clock in. A lot of games to be playing around with that, right? People who used to clock in are laughing a lot. Zooming over there. So like, there's a lot of games that you can play at work, right? You can tell people, clock me in, and like your friend clocks you in, and like it shows that you were there all day. Or even at work, let's say like, you know, you're expected to do your work, but you don't, and you do other things. That is not spiritual. Yeah, I'm not talking about like it's not moral. I'm saying it's not spiritual. Understand? We have an obligation for our bosses in order to deal with them. We can't like cheat on schoolwork. We have to like obey our teachers and do the right thing. The attitude of like, especially in the office, of like, who does he think he is, or who does she think she is, or whatever. That attitude is not spiritual. She's the boss. That's who she thinks she is. She's your boss, right? I'll give you guys two examples. Actually. One time, when I had one of those things called a job. So my job was like, I had to write, like I worked at the patent office, right? So for those of you guys who don't know what a patent is, it's like when a new invention comes, my job was to evaluate it. If it was a new invention, we'll give a patent. If it wasn't patentable, we had to write a report explaining why it was rejected, as we call it, right? So like every 2 weeks I had to submit like about 5 reports, meaning 5 rejections. I had to submit it in. It was a lot. Whatever, like I'm not gonna get into all that. So every 2 weeks I had to do this. And very early on in my job, I remember like I submitted in five reports. And my boss, and I remember I came in the next day and I got this long email explaining to me how one of the reports I did it like I used the wrong form, and she was very upset, and she was like, you know, like you can never ever like use this form, it's the wrong form. She got like real upset. I was like, first of all, calm down. Then I was like, you know what, like okay, whatever, I'll take it. So fast forward 2 weeks later, submitted five new reports, called it a day. The next day I walk in, I got a longer email. This time she's like, your last warning, I'm gonna report you to the director. Clearly you can't follow examples, whatever. And she said I used the same wrong form that she told me not to use again. Here's the thing. That report that she was talking about was from the previous one. Right? Like before she sent the email. She just never like reviewed it. That's on her. She's wrong. So I was like, you know, like, who do you think you are? You know, like, so I had an opportunity here, right? So I'm in the right. Like that email was very condescending. It was very, very mean. It was written in a way to like get into my head, and it worked. But what pissed me off is she was wrong, and like it was a very wrong way to like kind of send an email. So I said, you know what? I got to deal with it in a different way. I went out to lunch, caught up on some Office, you know, kind of laughed a little bit, got in a good mood, sat down, said, let me write this thing down. I said, thank you for your feedback. I take full responsibility. And I assure you, I'll never do this again. P.S. Screenshot of the date that was submitted of the report, screenshot of the day she sent the first email, and said that was before the email. But thank you for your feedback, and I'll assure you it will never happen again. She didn't respond. Fast forward, 3 months later, or like a few months later. I didn't know this at the time. But we're told that you get rated on how much reports you type up and that kind of sort of thing. But we also get rated on how you're able to work with other people around the office. They don't tell you that part. So, and there were like other instances where like I worked it out with like, and I had another like very rude boss, and I was dealing with him like as if I was the boss and saying, so tell me, how do you feel about it? You know, like, so I was just like, so they wrote that up in the report. And they said, because you've been doing this, and she brought up the email, like, you know, that email, whatever, he's a bonus. You've gone over, in fact, like the expectation. Don't worry about it. I'm like, wow. So, it says in the Bible, actually, a gentle answer deflects anger, but harsh words makes temper flare. I guarantee you, especially if you have like a hard teacher, a hard boss, a rude person around you, this attitude of like, I will show them, I'm going to tell them off, I will do this, like no, I'm going to really like hand it over to them. That mentality will not get you anywhere. It won't get you anywhere with like, what is customer service, right? Like if you want something, you're listening. So like, I'm sorry if you haven't talked to them. So like, there's like, it doesn't matter, like that mentality. When you get in your zone, you're like, they can't talk to me. That mentality, not only is it unspiritual, you will not succeed in life. I'm not saying like be walked all over. I took a position. I let them know, no, wait, that's not what happened. Actually, we're going to talk about this. But there's a way to do it, a gentle answer. Gentle answer. Accept. Like, if like the person is angry, yes, okay. And in fact, sometimes walking away. Let me give you guys another example. True story, 10th grade. Yeah, we're going to go with stories after stories. 10th grade, he knew me. I was a perfect child, right? I was a model child. Don't zoom in. So in 10th grade, I was in English, and like, I'm gonna do that one again. So in English class, like, I didn't have a good like relationship with my teacher, and it kind of started off like really bad from the beginning. Then it was like all my friends were in the class, and then like I became like a class clown. So we goofed off the entire year. I felt bad for her. Sometimes she'd just give up and go to the corner. Like I felt bad. Like it was bad. It was a bad class. It was because like all the wrong people who shouldn't have been in that room were in the room. Like it was just like whatever. So I can't do it, and then she'll go like yeah. And we were like we were crazy. We were stupid, right? So then it was like 10th grade. At the end of 10th grade, like you start talk to your what is it called? Your advisor. And then she was like, what school you want to go to? I said VTech. She was like, that's funny. And I was like, no, I'm serious. She was like, well, you got to step it up next year. You got to take honor classes and get into the honor program, really show like you're working hard for it. And I had the grades. So I said, perfect. Like, what's the requirement? She said, get a recommendation from teachers. Wait. This is
All
true.
teachers?
No, like especially English, I needed the English was something that I needed to get into. English honors.
Okay.
For like the next year, junior year. This is a true story, I'm not lying. So I went at the end of the year and I said, can I get a recommendation? She said, absolutely. Absolutely. She wrote me a bad recommendation. She said, he may have the grades, but he's not mature enough to handle the course. I didn't get it. This is a true story. Like, this is not, I'm not making this up. I was like, no, but ma'am, can we, like, ma'am, like, no, I didn't get it. Can you blame her? She's not even like, I would have done that, right? Like, if I, as a teacher, if somebody like myself in 10th grade said that, he's not mature. Like, just because, like, your boss is not responding to you right now, it doesn't mean, like, he won't get you later on with other things. If there's that new promotion, if there's that new, like, opportunity, do you think he's going to give it to you if you told him your mind? You're there to work. You're there to work. If it's school, you're there to go to school. I can tell you so many examples of times where it went good and it went bad. Like, I have stories of all kinds, right? But the way that you handle people, even when they're difficult, is by a gentle answer. That does not mean you can't voice your opinion. But there's a right way to do it and there's a wrong way to do it. This mentality of who do they think they are will not get you anywhere in life with anybody. And it's not spiritual. It's not spiritual. If you're there for the work, if you're there for the work and your boss is talking down on you, just refer back to the work. I understand why you feel that way. So can we talk about this work? If your teacher is saying something mean, I understand you're frustrated, but I still don't understand the assignment. That kind of conversation will lead you like everywhere. Even when the person is wrong, they'll come back and apologize. I've had bosses come back and apologize to me. Now, I'm not saying I'm always perfect. Trust me, I got bad stories as well. I'm just telling you, there are things that work, and there are like attitudes and my perspective and mindsets that really need to be cleared away. And this whole, who do you think you are mentality, I'll repeat that over and over. This is not the way to go about life. Next one, spiritual fathers. This is kind of the one that I was talking about. What makes spiritual fathers a little bit different is the fact that spiritual fathers not only have authority over your like flesh, they have like authority over your soul. If you disrespect your boss, what might happen? You're fired, right? But if you disrespect a spiritual father, what might happen? What do you have the power to do? What do you have? What do you have the power to do? He has the power to like kick me out of the kingdom of heaven. This is the power he holds. This is the power he holds. This is the power he holds.
I just left.
I was like, I have no hope. When he became a priest, oh, say that to him. He's like, well, if he can't make it. Right? So like, if you like meet just somebody like, I don't know, like big or something, there's something intimidating about them, right? Like, just so he doesn't punch you in the face, you reserve yourself. Remember? One time in high school, this kid kind of like cursed me out. I was like, what'd you say? He said, you heard me? I was like, I actually did. I really did. Because like he's gonna beat me up, right? Like he's big. Just if he's huge, there's some like type of like, respect that you give, right? He has authority over your soul out of nothing, just like spiritual fathers. There has to be some level of respect. Here's why I bring this up. Every household talks about priests, almost every. Look, almost in this case, which like at Thanksgiving, at Christmas, Venerating. Oh, like the priest, the Orthodox priest. Guess what, you? If you want to talk personal, I can tell you personal stories about all priests. Doesn't mean anything. But you have to understand this. They have this authority over me at the end of the day. At the end of the day. It doesn't matter like what they're doing. Are they all holy and spiritual? I remember one time Abel was asking me, do priests sin? I was like, but the point is not do they sin or do they not. It's what kind of authority do they have? And they have a lot. That's enough for us to really reserve the way that we talk about priests. Can we tell them that they're wrong? Absolutely we must when they're wrong. There's a way to do it. There's a way not to do it. Can we just talk about them like trash and like in every household and like bring them down and say like negative things? Can we do that? Absolutely not. I remember one time, like this kind of conversation started up at the house, and then like my friend, like he used to go to church with me a lot, and then he was like, in the case what you now, and like it was kind of like more of a joke type of thing about priests. I said, you know what, I don't appreciate that. He was like, it's just a joke, laugh, whatever. I was like, okay. I got a joke about your mom, let me tell you, it's kind of funny. So guess what? And he was like, don't, that's not funny. I was like, exactly. Like, if I got up there and talked about your mom like that in public, how do you feel? You let it go? Like, if I met your mom today, the next day, like, I came here and I was like, yo, his mom? Yo, she's crazy. And then I started telling you a story, you would be okay with it? No, absolutely not. There's no way you would be. So how could you be okay when they talk about your father, your spiritual fathers? It's not okay. We must speak up. That is not acceptable. Even when they're wrong. The book of Genesis, right? This is what it teaches us. When Noah was in his old age, what happened? He drank wine. And then what happened? He passed out. Did he just pass out? How did he pass out?
He was naked.
Naked. The most embarrassing state. Old man. And what happened? One of the first kids came and what did he do? Pointed and laughed, right? He pointed and laughed. He's like, oh, look at daddy. And then what did he do? He went back and got his brother. Yo, like, look what he's doing. What did the second kid do?
He helped him like dress right.
He didn't even want to look. He turned around. And then like, he dropped his clothing over the father to cover the way that he was. The father woke up, he cursed the first one and blessed the second one. Curse the first one and bless the second one. Even if it's true, like all this stuff that's being said, our job is to cover it up. To cover it up. Especially in public. Especially in public. Did you hear what that priest did? Did you hear what if he becomes a sinner tomorrow, if he becomes like a blasphemer and he goes around doing it, like, did you hear how Bible stood? If you see him drunk on the streets, what would you do? Take pictures? Post it on Facebook? No, cover it up. He's your father. You see? We protect our fathers. You could tell him the next day. You could go to his house and say, I'm worried about you as my father. I'm worried. You can't do this anymore. That's a different conversation. But like, oh man, this crazy guy, whatever, you should have saw what he did. That doesn't help anybody. We were having conversations about deacons today, right? It doesn't help anybody by me talking about like other deacons to other people. I gotta go to the person and talk to them. If I see somebody doing wrong, I'm gonna go to you and talk to you about it. That's different. And when we go around and like, oh, so-and-so did this and so-and-so did that, and whatever, especially when we're talking about our fathers, you're not honoring them. You're not honoring them. Let's keep going. The next, who is your mother? We keep it short. Huh? Your mother, right? The church is your mother. The marriage between man and woman is described to be the relationship between the church and Christ. The relationship between church and Christ. So that's usually what the St. Paul especially loved, using these metaphors of comparing a husband and a wife between like the Christ and the church. If Christ is the father, the church is
The mother.
the mother. A few years, like a long time ago, I remember.
Church and Christ.
Yeah. Huh? What? Please. To it. I was saying something. A few readers?
Few years ago.
Few years ago, I had a good friend of mine, and his mom hit me up, and she said, "Your friend is going out of control. Like he's doing crazy things. He's like getting into all type of trouble. Please talk to him." So I said, "All right, what's going on, bud? Like your mom hit me up. She's saying you're not doing well. What's going on?" He said, "If my mom fell in front of me, I'll walk by her. I won't pick her up because I don't care about her at all."
What?
This is a true statement.
Can you repeat that?
I prefer not to. He said, "If my mom fell in front of me, I would walk like around her. I won't pick her up. I won't come to her aid." Because he was saying like that's how much he didn't care about what his mom had to say. Now, to his credit, well not credit, but like he was 15, right? Like when you're 15, you say crazy things. Yo, maybe we haven't said this. Maybe maybe we haven't said this. That's not the point. That's not the point that I'm. So, you guys, are you guys listening?
Yeah.
But even when I'm telling the story, like most of you guys are like, that's just not acceptable, right? What about when your mother, the church, has fallen down? And I don't mean the church in terms of like the actual church, but I mean like things happening around the church. Like, do we care enough to come to the aid of our mother? Right? Like in this generation, we're at a time where the church needs you the most. We're at a point, we're at a pinnacle point. It's very like, we're like on the verge.
Of what?
No, that's a very good question.
I'm actually curious.
No, that's a very good question. Where were we 5 years ago? Was this class implemented? In the way that it is right now? No.
No.
It was not, right? It was not. We didn't have access to English sermons. We didn't have access to English mazmurs. All the youth was gone, right? Like like in jail places, if you go to prisons, like bathroom is written by Marinya. Because there's so many Ethiopians now going to prison.
Where?
Like here, like in Virginia and stuff like that. If you go, it's written in Amharic because there's so many like Abasha young kids going to prison. That has to be like written in Amharic. Like Shintavit, like the youth, the Ethiopian community is really in trouble. It's really in trouble, right? And we are at a point where we're starting to see sparks. That's what I mean. There's like a little like hope here and little hope here, but there's also a lot of challenges that are coming at the same time. A lot of challenges. I always say, look how many people started the journey with us. Yeah. So David, think about how many people we started out with. Right? And look at us now. And I've always said this was exactly what was going to happen. And I guarantee you we will pick up more soldiers and we will lose a lot more. Unfortunately. But this commandment is saying, this church is your mother. Come to the aid. Come to the aid. Especially right now, where we're beginning to see, like before we were blind, we didn't know where we were going. We had no idea how it was going to end. But now there's like sparks of hope coming alive. Like we're seeing it. We're seeing the effect it has. Walking away at this time is like saying, my mother has fallen, but I don't really care. You know what hurts? Is how much the youth really doesn't care about the church. And I say that openly. If you go back to Ethiopia and talk to like older like priests and clergy members, when they talk about the church today, they cry. Like it's as if they're talking about like their own mother going through like cancer or something like that. And then like they get into it and then they cry. When the martyrs, the 30 martyrs died. Ooh, did you hear about that? Yeah, it's crazy. And we move on. maybe post it on like social media, RIP, Menamin, social media. Like, that's our church, that's our brothers, that's our sisters. You know? There has to be like, I'm not big on emotions, but there has to be an emotional attachment to the church. Emotional. Something like where it hits you, like, that's my church. You know? Like, I can't believe this is happening. It doesn't matter what church it is. It should affect us some way, somewhat. Unfortunately for the young generation, especially in the Western world, it's just not there. It's just not there. I'll give you guys another example. When the temple was rebuilt, so we talked about this before, right? So there was the Temple of Solomon, which was built huge. It was huge, the biggest that ever been seen. The Babylonians came, they destroyed the temple. Sad, sad day. Everybody was exiled to Babylon, and then when Persia came in, they were allowed to go back and rebuild their temple. So during the time of Ezra, Ezra was in charge of rebuilding the temple. But when the temple was built the second time, it just wasn't the same as the first. Does that make sense? So like when they saw the second temple being built, a lot of people were rejoicing except for the elders, and this is what it says. Then all the people gave a great shout, praising the Lord, because the foundation of the Lord's temple had been laid. That many of the elder priests, Levites, and other leaders who had seen the first temple wept aloud when they saw the new temple's foundation. The others, however, were shouting for joy. The joyful shouting and weeping mingled together in a loud noise that could be heard far in the distance. So here's what it's saying. You've got to understand that this church, so the elders, they're watching it, and there's an emotional attachment, right? They're like, but it wasn't like the first one. We lost the first one. And they're crying, and they're sad, and they really care about it because they understand this temple is their mother, right? So when we talk about this church, and it has to hit a nerve. It has to hit a nerve. For those of you guys who know Abba Philippos, whenever he talks about the church, how does he talk? His whole posture changes, right? He goofs around, he jokes around, he does whatever he does. But when he talks about the church, there's a time for everything. There's a time to laugh, there's a time whatever. But when it comes to the church, when it comes to service, it's time to get it real. It's time to get serious. Especially right now. Especially right now. Next. The Virgin Mary. There's a lot that we could say on the Virgin Mary. Mariology is in itself an entire lesson. She's your mother. She's your mother. Not only is she your mother, she's the mother of God. Right? So, there's a video on YouTube. I don't know if he's new or something, but this guy is walking literally walking around, interviewing people, Orthodox people. Have you guys, y'all seen it? So he's trying to make Orthodox people question about their faith. Obviously, a lot of people, Orthodox people, don't know anything about their faith, right? We know this. Not a lot of people take the time to learn about their faith, to learn about their religion. So this guy's why do you worship Mary? I don't know. We don't worship Mary. That's the answer. But so the people, they don't know what they're saying, so they can't answer the guy. He's like, well, Jesus is the real one that we need to worship and all this stuff. First of all, we're talking about honor and veneration, respect. We're talking about the Mother of God. There's some people, and not all Protestants say this. There's some Protestants that say what's special about the Virgin Mary? If I lived at that time, Jesus might have been born for me. The people's mindset has really changed, right? But whatever they say, let them say. All I'll say is this. Simple fact, number one, we honor the Virgin Mary because she's the Mother of God. You can't disrespect Christ's mother and think you're going to get away with it. It just doesn't work, right? You need to respect the Mother of God. Second, she was given as a mother to us. As we read in the book of John, chapter 19, verse 26 through 27. When Jesus saw his mother standing there beside the disciple he loved, he said to her, "Dear woman, here is your son." So John is representing all mankind at this point, standing before the Virgin Mary. And he said to his disciple, "Here is your mother." And from then on, this disciple took her into his home. So John is representing mankind, and the Virgin Mary becoming the mother for all mankind. She is your mother, literally. She's given as a gift from God to us as a mother. A gift from God to us as a mother. But the last thing that I always find funny is, so there's I get into all whatever, so I talk to different people from different faiths, and the question especially about the Virgin Mary is well, no, why do we have to whatever, the Virgin Mary, no, why not God? So the Virgin Mary gave a prophecy. She herself gave a prophecy about herself. Luke chapter 1 verse 48. It says, "From now on, all generations will call me blessed." Not some generations, not those generations that lived at the time, but all generations shall call me blessed. So we call her blessed. All generations will call me blessed. If you read a lot of the venerations and the prayers about the Virgin Mary, people have questions. Why do we talk about the Virgin? Why do we talk about the Virgin? Because we talk about our mother. We talk about our father, we talk about our mother. We don't have a problem with that, right? Our Father who art in heaven, and our mother, the Virgin Mary. There's no problem. Honor your father and your mother. She is our mother, right? And this is a commandment as well, if you understand. It's not part of the 10 Commandments, but it is a commandment that is saying, all generations shall call me blessed. All generations, not some. Not some. Again, this is not stuff that needs to be written down. I feel like we all know this, yeah.
So when they read Luke 1:48, what's their excuse? It literally says, like you said, it says that she said it.
Yeah, and then so they're she's blessed, but then why do we worship her? So a lot of the times people are stuck on the concept of worship.
Okay.
And especially until you start to break it down. And then I had one very, very interesting, so I kept pushing this at him. Pushing meaning challenging, I didn't want him to kind of go around. I said, hey, all generations. And then he said, well, then that means intercession. So we got into intercession, and he said, but anybody else could intercede. It doesn't have to be the Virgin Mary. Well, at this point you're just arguing, just not to lose, right? So well then we could say that about all mankind. We could say that about, so because we need to honor everyone, this kind of very childish type of argument. Yeah, we need to honor everybody, but the people's respect is different. By the way, not all denominations agree with me on this. There's some people that say the honor and the respect of St. Paul is equal to the honor and respect of me. That's fine. They can make that claim. They can make that claim. I know for a fact I can't perform the miracles that St. Paul did and St. Peter did. My shadows will not heal anybody. You could stand under my shadows all day long. Try it. Nothing will happen. I guarantee you. Right? So I'm not prepared to say that my respect level and St. Peter's is the same. I'm not prepared to say that. Another one, I don't know if you're into this kind of stuff, but another thing they would raise is, so when John went into the kingdom of heaven, he saw an angel, he bowed down to him, and the angel said, do not bow down to me. Aha! He says, do not bow down to me. Why do we bow down, first of all? So the book of Revelation, that specific, it happened I think twice, if not 3 times, right? So that specific chapter is talking about worship. So John's bowing down was a form of worship. So the angel saying, and you got to read between the lines. It's very specific, and Revelation is very difficult to understand. Very difficult to understand. So that chapter is talking about how many people are confusing what true worship looks like, and it's trying to show that even John himself didn't really get the full picture. Second, according to our forefathers and the church's teaching is, John's respect was as the angels. So he's saying we're on the same level. You don't need to be bound down. We're on the same level. We're good because you're this much respected, right? But if you go into the Genesis, there's so many examples of people bowing down to other people, right? We see this bowing down is it happens everywhere. So that's just not you bow down every time. If you're talking about in terms of intercession, St. Paul, and I have the verse here, it says we need to pray for all leaders. That is intercession, praying on behalf of other people. So the question is, who do you want to pray for you? Like if I'm here and he's here, who would you want to pray for you? The priest. Makes sense. I'll give you another analogy to make it a little easier. If you have if you have a friend called Rufus, remember Rufus? If you have a friend, were you there?
No, I use this example in the video, right?
Did I? I don't know. I might have. So if you have a friend called Rufus, right? A Rufus is a guy who's like into drugs and like whatever, and like gets into fight, never been to church a day in his life or whatever. And then you have, what is it, Haile Mikhail, right? So, and then Haile Mikhail is like, he goes to church all the time and he prays, whatever. Who are you going to ask to do prayer for you? Haile Mikhail, right? It's common sense, right? Like most of the time when you call your friends and you like, pray for me, you ask the people that you think are like closer to God to pray for you. That's why you're asking Haile Mikhail. You feel like he's closer to God than Rufus is on his journey. You're not judging him. You just feel like Haile Mikhail is closer to God. My question to everybody is, who's closer to God than Mary? Like, who knows Jesus better than Mary? Nobody. Nobody's closer to Mary than nobody's closer to Jesus than Mary. Like, nobody is. So I prefer to go to Mary. You could go there. You can tell me all day to pray for you. Trust me, I got my sins. I'm forgetting my own prayers. So good luck. I see how that does you. Like, you know, good luck with that. For me, like, we ask intercession, pray for me, pray for me. We do that all the time. So I prefer to go to the mother of Jesus himself for intercession. This is like some of the stuff that we talk about. It's so childish. It really is. Like, it just gets into like, if you really calm down, like, that's what I say. Like, Orthodox is a church and a religion that's been around for 2,000 years. It didn't come yesterday. Some of these denominations literally came yesterday. They have a history of like 100 years, 150 years. The concept of not venerating the Virgin Mary is, I believe, 1850, 1800. It's a very new concept. Like, some Germans came up with it. It's a very new concept. It's like for 2,000 years we've been venerating. Even the Protestants were like, "Oh no, don't talk about the Virgin Mary." Like, you know, it's like a given thing. It's like a new phenomenon to say like, "Don't talk about the Virgin Mary." Like, whatever. Yeah.
For the John 19, the one where like Christ says,
Okay.
Virgin Mother to John or whatever. I never really. I feel like. So couldn't Protestants kind of like debate on this and say that Christ is just like saying to John, like, take care of her as I am like.
No, I'll tell you exactly what the Protestants say with that verse, and I thought you were going up with that. So the Protestants will tell you, according to the Hebrew tradition, when like the man in the house died, right? The woman, because if she was a widow, she couldn't handle property, so she had to be given to a man, right, to handle the property and the stuff. So the reason why he's saying this is your son is not for that purpose. It's so that John could help her with the property that Jesus is leaving her behind. This is the argument they will tell you. Like, go to any scholar. There's a huge problem with this, right? So if we're going to say according to the Hebrew tradition, we have to go with the Hebrew tradition. According to the Hebrew tradition, when the man of the family died, she's given to the closest man in the family. The closest man in the family is James. It's not John. It is a huge problem. So like, even that theory doesn't hold any water, right? So like, and you can keep going. I think there's like 2 or 3 other people who should have been in place before John. So that just does not hold any water at all.
But then what about the part how you say that he represents mankind?
What about it?
Like,
Would they accept it?
Kind of like one of the, like, you have to like read between the lines.
It's exegesis. I agree. I 100% it's exegesis. What I'm doing is a commentary. I agree. But the reason why Protestants will not accept this verse is not because of John representing mankind. There's a lot of verses. So what you do in situations like this in theology is you show how in other parts of the Bible, God refers to one person representing mankind. There's a lot of examples that I could put using the same type of formula. And I could say, he's doing the same thing here. That's what you do in theology, right? So like, but I don't need to do this because that's not where people would disagree with me on. People would disagree on the like, according to the Hebrew tradition. Did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Other questions? Other questions? Alright, I'm done. Can we give Tuka a round of applause for holding the laptop? That was so good.
Homework.
How embarrassing. Let's zoom in.
Homework.
The homework. Call your parents and tell them you love them.
Read Exodus 20.
You need to call your mom.
See you tomorrow now.
You don't want to be God.
I want to see him do it.
Guys. Hey, come on. Let's quickly finish this and everybody will be on their way. Before we start, I'm gonna ask everybody to, we're just gonna do a small exercise. Can everybody in here just close your eyes? Close your eyes, right? People in the back. David especially. I can see you looking at me. Alright. When I look around, most of the eyes are closed, right? Alright, you can open it up. The activity is done. Why did you guys listen to me?
Because
No, I'm asking you. What made you believe me enough to tell you to close your eyes?
well, you're kind of standing there.
Yeah, it's exactly what we learned about. And somehow, some way, I am teaching right now. Therefore, you have to somewhat honor. It's not even you have to. It was most of you. There's some difficult ones that were staring dead at me. When I told them, it's instinct. Instinctively, when somebody that's empowered tells you to do something, especially in a place like this, a church, it's it tells you that one of these commandments is engraved within us. It's not something you have to think about. It's something you do automatically, right? So to go out of our way when it comes to the commandment of honoring our fathers and our mothers, to go completely out of our way to not respect them, not honor them, it shows you it's outside of our nature, right? So that's just a little activity that I wanted to do. But the main thing we're going to talk about today is obviously the fourth commandment. But can I get a volunteer to see? So how many commandments do we have? 10, right? Okay, everybody knows that. Of the 10, there's a difference between the first 3 and the last 7. What is that? Huh?
The first 3 is about God.
Yeah, the first 3 is about God, and the last 7 are? Yeah, it's relationship about, what are the first 3? What's the first one? What's the first one? Okay, the second one. And the last one? Sabbath. Oh, God. We got to do a review next week, bro. Alright, so those are directly with God, right? One of those, the first 3 commandments, they have something to do with God. The other 7 are what? Everything that has to do with relationship you have within your day-to-day lives, right? So that tells you, of the 10 commandments, 7 of them is the relationship that you have with, on your day-to-day lives, right? It tells you how important the relationship that you build, whether it's your mother and father, friends, family, whatever it may be, there are 7 out of the 10 commandments written for you to abide by that, right? So, depending on that, we are going to look at a verse, 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 8. Most important of all, continue to show deep love for each other, and for love covers a multitude of sins. Right? I'm going to read it again. 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 8. Most of all, continue to show deep love for each other, for love covers a multitude of sins. Right? So we're kind of going to talk about a little bit about love. I don't want to come up here after Dawi taught you about one commandment and then talk about that commandment again. So when talking about love, right? We say we love our parents, we love friends, whatever. What do we mean when we say we love someone?
You're willing to sacrifice?
You're willing to sacrifice? Care? What else? You ever told somebody I love you? It can be romantic relationship, brothers, sisters, friends. You've told at one point in your life, you've told someone you love them, right? There's somebody you claim you love. But what does that really mean when you say, I love somebody?
You're willing to like do what will make them happy.
Yeah, you're willing to do what makes them happy, right? But again, that can go for anybody, right? For example, if you're trying to get a promotion, you're gonna do whatever it takes, like to make your boss happy, right? So it's not necessarily something you're willing to do. Sacrifice, I kind of go along with that, but you might sacrifice something just to feel good about yourself or something, you know? There's always a fine line. When it comes to love, we can't say we love somebody, right? There's two types of loves, I feel like. We can't say we love someone without actually having a knowledge of who they are, without actually knowing who they are. Everybody in here say, show of hands if you love God. I'm just trying to make sure there's every hand up in this room, right? Show of hands, like if you love God, show of hands. But we can't really claim that we love Him if we don't know about Him, right? We can't just walk around outside and say, I love God. What do you love about Him? What do you know about Him? Those people that you say you love, like your best friend. Think about it, like your best friend that's your ride or die, no matter what, like you've been through thin and thick, whatever, right? That person, you know everything about them, right? You know what upsets them. You know what they've been through. You know how to cheer them up, whatever, right? That's your brother, your sister. That person you can say you love because you guys are almost together as one, right? So comes this question, like, can we say we love God if we don't know Him? What do we know about God for us to say we love Him? Right? Because it's easy. Like, again, since we're all Ethiopians, and we're raised in the church, whatever, we're in a church environment, it's easy for us to say, oh, yeah, I love God, of course. But what are we actually saying when we love God? In the Bible, you know, the only definition that says God is blank is what? God is what? Love, right? That's how powerful love is. We can't just walk around going about saying we know, like, we love someone if we don't know them. And this goes for God. This goes for your church. Right? And moving forward, there's a different type of love. Now, like, as Christians, we're also supposed to love, like, everybody. Even our enemies, right? Even those people, like, that upset you. Even the people that test you. Like, it's hard to love some people, right? Like, we're also supposed to love those people. And for that, it's just, it's part of our nature. Like, you know? And it's because the type of world we live in, the people that surround us, or even how we raised and whatever, that's what corrupted, right? I don't know if you've ever seen like a little kid when he comes to church, or a little kid when you give him something. Like, little kids are pure, right? Imagine when you were like, are you a better person when you were a little kid, or like the person you are today? Think about it. When you're a little kid, you're just so pure, like you're just full of love. So originally, when you were created, just like I told you an earlier example we did, like, it's instinct for us to listen to honor somebody like that's empowered. It's instinct, right? Just like when we were kids, like, we're pure. Like, originally we're good, and then we learn to be bad, right? But Christianity is the opposite of that. Like, we're supposed to love people as whoever they come. That's what God taught us. Right? Because at the end of the day, what covers a multitude of sins? Love, right? So, now, aside, we have a homework, which is to tell your parents you love them, right? Tell your mother and your father to love them. But I think none of us actually, when you're thinking about love, we don't make the conscious effort to actually act on love. Because love is not something you think about. Love is not a feeling. Love is an action. It's something you actually perform. Right? So, as a kind of a homework, like, try to, like, not just when you go home today, or when you wake up in the morning, tomorrow, Monday morning, just think about some way you can show love to someone. And it doesn't necessarily have to be someone that's close to you. It could be, like, that annoying guy or annoying girl from work. It could be a random guy you see on the metro. Just somehow, some way, make a conscious effort to show love to someone. Because I think that's what kind of messes up when it comes to love, is we don't make the conscious effort to actually do it. We think about it, we say we love them, we internalize it. Yeah, like, it's easy to say you love somebody in the mind, but if you don't actually show them you love them, what water does that action hold, right? So, just to kind of wrap up, the verse that we looked at for today is 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 8. Most important of all, continue to show deep love for each other. For love covers a multitude of sins. And when it says each other, it's not just talking about people that are here with you. It means each other, every one of people that you see, strangers that you see across, enemies, workers, friends, whatever it may be, continue to show love. Find a way to perform an action of love to somebody. What's my Alexander?